Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne here with you on this Monday morning. Got a lot to talk about, and get the light on here. Morning, big weekend, man. College baseball, the College World Series. A lot of the teams have been selected. We still got a few games. Tennessee's got to play today. We got a lot to cover. Got a great show. First segment, Doug Dean will check in with us. AU Dose down in Birmingham. He's got a lot to talk about today. Second segment, Vince Ferrara up in Knoxville. We'll talk about Tennessee. I know Tennessee's got to play a game 3 today with Southern Miss. Second hour, Matt Dean checks in Memphis. Coach Franz Beard, GatorBaitMedia.com, and Wess Moore, ESPN 103.7 The Buzz there in Little Rock. And watched a lot of baseball over the weekend. Man, there's been some really, really good games. And at college, the NCAA tournament, I think, is growing in popularity in a lot of ways. I think it's mainly because just we love seeing there's fewer games. I love Major League Baseball too, but one of the problems that we have, so many games, a lot of people just tune out until late in the season. Especially when you get toward the playoffs and all like that. That stuff is really exciting. But we are here 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday, 8 to 10 a.m. Central, www.sidelines.live, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, everywhere. Watch us, listen, repeat it. If you can't listen, if you're working at that time, hey, man, just go back and listen to it at your convenience at www.sidelines.live. I think what I've seen with NCAA, this baseball tournament, college baseball is exciting. People love it. It's growing. And watching the tournament play out like it is, the SEC is a league, plays the best baseball there is, but there's good baseball all over the country. And, you find me a conference out there. The Big Ten, it's kind of, I get it. It's colder up there, but indoor facilities, they can be bought. They can be had, okay? So going over this one, Wake Forest. Man, Wake Forest, I guess they went for 2, beat Alabama 22-5 yesterday. They're the number 1 overall seed. I think a lot of people have been wondering, how good is Wake Forest? What are they going to do when they get into tougher competition? Well, they just took Alabama. I don't think Alabama was the best team in the SEC. I think it was Florida, Arkansas, LSU. They're all, there's a lot of good teams. You had 10 teams from the SEC get invited to the tournament. And Wake Forest, they are really, really strong. They won the College World Series, I think it was 1955. But they're in it this year, and they are a very, very good team. Tennessee, bottom line, they got their work cut out for them. Tennessee gets the win yesterday over Southern Miss, 8-4. We'll talk about that with Vince Ferrara from Knoxville, who covers Tennessee, also on the Tennessee Baseball Network. So I think that what I'm seeing is the more of an emphasis, and I don't know what NIL is doing. I don't know what it is doing in terms of impacting and bringing in more athletes on a roster. You've got 35 on a roster, 11.7 scholarships. And when you do that, that's about a third of do the math. It's about a third of a scholarship for each player. And we all know there are going to be some people that the only way you're going to get them is if you give them a full ride. So that may not be the perfect, world in terms of the division of those scholarships. But looking at what I'm seeing, you've got today, 5 p.m. Central, Southern Miss and Tennessee. That'll be on ESPN 2, and also Texas, Stanford, Tonight, 7 p.m. Central Daylight Time, Texas is at Stanford. And looking on here, well, on these games, yeah, there's a lot at stake here. Okay, so College World Series, and I think what I love most about college baseball is there's about not quite a third. It's about a third as many games as you have in the majors, and that what happens in the majors is if you think people can maintain that same level of intensity for 162 regular season games, plus all the preseason games down in Florida and out in Arizona, you're nuts. It is not going to happen. But you got Tennessee today, got to play Southern Miss for the right to get to the College World Series. Southern Miss, a very, very strong team. I mean, they're good. And I'm just sitting there thinking to myself, SEC baseball had 10 teams invited to the NCAA tournament. 8 were hosts. Okay. It's a very competitive baseball, 64 teams, just like you got 68 in basketball, but 64. And just look at the map of the 16 regional seeds to begin with. Now the supers, you've got 8, and the SEC is going to cannibalize itself, obviously. Some of these teams, I mean, Florida took out South Carolina, LSU, Kentucky. So, College World Series, this is what we shoot for. I mean, it's the pinnacle. But I think the interest in college baseball is growing, and that annuitizes the future. Really, it's going to help grow the future of Major League Baseball. If you watch a lot of college baseball and you start attaching yourself to your team and your team's players, and then you watch the teams that your school is playing, you watch those players, you're going to always have a little bit of an interest in what those players do when they go up to the next level. And I think that's what's fueling. That's good long-term for the future of Major League Baseball. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And looking at it from my perspective, we need baseball to be strong. NIL, we hear about, it's sort of like this. Football is first in basketball, baseball, but you've got the gymnastics, swimming. We know about all, that. And that's, but when we look at where's the money going in NIL, it's going primarily to college football. Now, we know that, the tax status of what you do with your NIL contributions, that's up in the air. I think that's interesting to see how that's being treated. But I don't know if you remember what we talked about last week with the NCAA and what's going on. But bottom line, let me review it. The IRS says nonprofit NIL collectives giving tax deductions could be illegal. Now let that sink in. IRS says nonprofit NIL collectives giving tax deductions could be illegal. Now, don't say I told you so. Here's a comment from someone. Don't say I told you so, but here it is. Will be a significant blow to NIL. Absolutely. You called it coming out here. But I think it will be, it's interesting. There's another quote. I think it will be a, quote, win, end quote, for the universities, foundations, as their advantage will be the continued tax deductibility of donations to them. Okay. So, Foghorn Leghorn says, boy, I say, boy, go. I say, go away, boy. You bother me. That's NIL, Foghorn Leghorn to the collective. So, look, traditional fundraising looks like it wins here, and the NIL collectives will not be so attractive from a tax deductibility standpoint if this goes through. But the collectives, if they're not getting the same deduction versus traditional fundraising, and I'm told they won't from a very well-known CPA, as I said, okay, so this will be a serious blow to NIL collectives. It'll tilt money back toward traditional fundraising. Yep, I actually think it's a really good thing for college athletics. So that's significant news, folks. And Doug Dean's on with us right now. We're going to head down. I'm going to head east on I-22, rumble along I-22. Here we come into Jefferson County. The old days, I had to go through Jasper, Alabama. Now, and I'll leave Memphis. I get on I-22. It takes like 3 hours and 15 minutes to get to the Magic City. Doug, good morning. And I was talking about what some stuff John Hartwell sent me about this ruling that the IRS came out with last week. And it was, we didn't really talk too much about it, but, you know, the bottom line, it's an SI.com article, story that came out. IRS says nonprofit NIL collectives giving tax deductions could be illegal. So John Hartwell says that's a victory, according to what he thinks, for traditional fundraising. But let's get on the day with that and what your thoughts on that. We got a lot to cover.
Well, yeah, apologize for my slight delay. You can deduct it.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it was a big day Saturday. Sweet daughter, her husband, Nick, welcomed young Henry. I think he'll be Hank if he plays quarterback at Auburn. It just sounds more like a football name. Henry is just quite a sport, and he's a early, heavy lean in 2041, class of 2041, somewhere, maybe Auburn. But yes. Yeah, great blessing. Wait 1 month, and then we got round 2 with my daughter, other twin daughter Lauren, expecting to be determined boy or girl. Let's talk about weather, Rob. Weather. And I understand that stadiums and officials have to keep fans safe, but just bizarro in Baton Rouge yesterday, that from what I've read, any sign of lightning was 50 plus miles away when the game could have started. And you know what game I couldn't help but think about, Rob, and I know you'll vividly remember it, the 1983 Iron Bowl in Birmingham at neutral Legion Field.
I was there.
That was about as neutral as Normandy, right?
Yeah.
And so I'll tell you, those fans didn't leave their seat with a tornado approaching only miles away and a deluge of rain coming down. So times have changed, right?
Yeah, I was at that game in 1983. You could not see across Legion Field, and that's that beautiful bright green turf. And Vic Beasley from Adairsville, Georgia, number 31, defensive back for Auburn, picked off a pass, interception. And it was so crazy that the sirens were going off there at Legion Field at that game. It said, a tornado warning has been issued for Jefferson County. Tornado was moving in this direction, and there were 75, 80,000 people in there, raining in torrents and sheets. You couldn't see across the field. Nobody left. I'm driving back on the bus from the game to the Sheridan, downtown Birmingham, and this old man comes over. We're talking after the game. He goes, well, I'm 85-year-old, and the way I look at it, if the Lord wants to take me, he just knew that I needed to be there to see Auburn beat Alabama. And I said, that's a good way to look at it. He goes, I fought in World War II. I made that, and I made this, so I'm a very blessed man. That was an incredible game, by the way.
I don't know. I mean, none of us want to get someone to get struck by lightning.
No.
I mean, I'm kind of I find it puzzling that whatever happened to the notion of assumption of risk, that you can walk around, if you want to go, I want to go fish the Spring River with a major thunderstorm going, it probably wouldn't be smart to do that. But I don't want my right to be stupid to take it away from me, right?
That's right. I have the right to vote for any stupid candidate I want to. Look at America.
Yeah. Okay, now you're very familiar. I saw that you had a fistful of the preseason magazine Saturday morning, and if you don't have the great, if not great on all his picks, at least great on his terminology, cutesy names and acronyms that he creates, but the great Phil Steele, and as the internets like to say, Rob, I want to say this morning, oh no, Phil, what is you doing, man? Did you see that? Phil Steele is picking Robbie Ashford to be QB1. And I don't know if Phil, I've had him on my podcast in the past. He's fun to talk to. Very good, very articulate guy who puts in no hour into his work. And it to the point where he crams it in a magazine and has to use about number 6 type font. So you need a magnifying glass to read it. But he I don't know if he's succumbing, Rob, to throwing some clickbait out there or if he really believes it. However, I will say, if you've seen Robbie Ashford's workouts this summer, it's not impossible. I don't think it's likely, but it's far from impossible that with Ashford finally getting some very good QB coaching and private coaching this summer, that he figures out the passing game. And if he does, as I've written in the last number of weeks, if Robbie Ashford is just barely below Peyton Thorne in passing ability, ball game. You're going to have a 4th running back on the field. And I think you would see Freeze still give both quarterbacks, and I don't mean to leave Holden Gurner out, but he's got to get my attention in practices. So it's going to be an intriguing summer. And how weird would it be that we're all thinking right now, I wonder how Robbie will deal with being now announced the backup. And what if we got to late August and the question becomes, I wonder how transfer Peyton Thorne will deal with being the backup to Robbie Ashford.
That is great stuff. And we're going to take a break and come back to it. But when I go, it looks like Robbie's been doing some workouts under the flyover there by the Top Shelf Golf there in the Magic City. That great stuff, Doug. That's what I love about having you on here. We're going to be right back. Doug Dean down in the Magic City after this.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Doug, I want to say that I've already, after that discussion we had with the Duff, Frank Duffy and Tiger Air Saturday morning, I have already gotten in contact with several people, a listener of the show down in Fairhope, Alabama. Also, talking with Chad House, ECS House Industries, one of our great sponsors. We were over there Friday and Saturday for the barbecue contest in Wynne at the sports complex, and Chad was organizing that with his team, all the great volunteers there. And it was a lot of fun. God, we had a lot of fun. And I've got Frank and him will be talking hopefully today or tomorrow. What they're doing, that Tiger Air, is a really cool story. But I want to say, Doug, it's just, I go through Birmingham so much. I love that city, UAB Medical Center. Every time I go by there and I see that bell tower on the top, my girlfriend, when I was in college, was in a car wreck in Auburn, spent 21 days at UAB, May of 84. And to this day, I cannot stop by there without saying the sign of the cross. I mean, it is Birmingham as a medical center is at Memphis and Birmingham. And there was a great pediatrician, heart surgeon, who was killed in a car wreck, tragically, Dr. Allen, years ago. And my mother, all the volunteers at Le Bonheur, did the telethons and the TV fundraising and all. And Dr. Jerry Pacifico, who was the heart surgeon who worked on my girlfriend, she made complete recovery at UAB, would come up and help do his cases at at Le Bonheur Children's Hospital. So what goes on in Birmingham and Memphis, those two cities are connected at the hip. I mean, it is unbelievable, but an incredible city. But I thought about that. I saw these pictures of that workout with Robbie Ashford. And Doug, you're the first person to stick his neck out and report that information about Robbie. But, you know, the big flyover there by Top Shelf Golf, downtown Birmingham, which,
Yeah.
folks, when you're going through Birmingham, get off the interstate and go check out, you know, the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame, Top Shelf Golf. But they were working out underneath there, Doug. So I want you to pick back up on this because this is a cool story.
Well, you know, the transfer portal gets the headlines because it's something you can monitor. The writers and beat writers and anybody with an iPhone or computer that can claim to be an analyst can watch that, and news breaks, especially when the portal season opens. But what I've noticed happens is that we're really dismissive of the potential value in the case of Ashford and even Gurner of going through an entire spring, an entire off season, being, let's just call it 40 or 50% ahead of anybody that comes in as talented as Peyton Thorne looks. I mean, the guy set single season records for total yards, total touchdowns, and passing TDs at Sparty. So, I mean, he's the smart money's on Thorne right now. But here's a guy in Robbie Ashford that really never played the QB position. He got to Oregon and barely got any time there. I'm not sure what quality of QB coaching he got at Oregon, but I know he got rather subpar, putting it mildly, QB development and coaching under Harsin regime. Ironic, that's kind of tragically ironic because in hiring Harsin, we said, okay, we finally got a quarterback whisperer. We didn't. And so if there's anything to maturity and the light bulbs going off on calming down, and then you add to it what is expected to be a significantly improved O-line, we already know about the running back room, then we got to be careful writing off Ashford. And the last thing I'll say is I'm not a fan on the, let's call it, temperament side of any quarterback or really any player going to Twitter and posting tweets, which Robbie did, like 2023 will be the year I'm no longer disrespected. Gosh, someone please stop with the disrespect angle. We don't disrespect Ashford, fans, that is. We want to see him improve, and we just didn't get that body of work during the season last year. But he'll get to have a say in, was that more attributable to poor development and O-line, or is it simply some yips that he's got trying to throw the ball?
Well, first off, I'd say for 2 years when he was in Eugene, Oregon, he played baseball, not football. So that daily repetition that a quarterback gets wasn't there. But I think athletic ability, when you take all that in there, you look at him and Nick Marshall. Who's faster in a straightaway run? It's Robbie Ashford. This guy's the best, fastest athlete ever I've seen play quarterback at Auburn. But you got to be careful about airing your dirty laundry in public or kind of virtue signaling to people. It's just like in work, you know, if you've got people that are playing politics out in the open, not a good idea. And that's why that great advice that I got years ago from Barry Blackburn, my attorney, I worked with for 20 years, he used to say, stay out of politics at work and stay in production. And when you start putting that stuff out there like that, you know, this kid has all the ability in the world, but Peyton Thorne, you know, Mike G of the Auburn War Report talks about him. You know, he's got things he's great at, things he struggles with. He's going to get flushed out of the pocket a lot more in this league, but you got to learn to stay in the pocket and look at your primary, your second, and your third reads. But I really applaud you, Doug, for digging into this stuff. Let's talk about that offensive line of Auburn's. Brought in 7 or 8 new guys.
Yeah, and before we dive into that, because I don't have every new or the O-line depth chart committed to memory, but here's the other thing that is intriguing. And in the modern game, you rarely see coaches and offensive coordinators willing to use 2 quarterbacks. But I think the way the season plays out and the big game looming early September 23 at College Station, when by that point you would figure if it's going to work with Bobby Petrino and Jimbo Fisher, kind of an unholy alliance that I think may have some incompatibilities. But if Jimbo can subjugate his own ego and turn it over to Petrino, they will be scoring and able to move the ball. So the first 3 games for Montgomery and Freeze are all about calibrating the QB position, the passing game, because they're going to be able to run the ball on anybody, I believe. So, but I think as the season play out, there will be games where you would like what Thorne brings to the table more than Robbie, that you're going to have to throw the ball more. And then there will be games where you need what I call a 4th running back, like Cam Newton was, that will allow, and Ashford can be a threat that opens things up, and maybe you don't have to throw the ball as much. So, but that's tricky because I don't see Freeze ideally wanting to try to utilize 2 quarterbacks, with the exception of possibly if you could sell Robbie Ashford, let's say he's QB2, you could sell him on being Cordell Stewart and coming off the bench and having a really valuable 15 plays in the big games, then I think Auburn could be deadly at the QB position.
I agree with you. Here's a question I'll throw at you. When you've got running backs like Auburn has, and you're breaking in new quarterback, okay, Peyton Thorne, 26 starts in the Big Ten, but new to the SEC, the speed, it's a lot faster. And then you think about Robbie Ashford, the tendency to, wow, if he gets out in the open, hardly anybody can catch this guy. But the one that can stand in the pocket and check his reads is the one I believe that'll be the starter. And if Robbie Ashford can go from 47% completion to 57 to 63%, that's a game changer. But that's a big ask, isn't it?
It is. And, a minute ago you asked about O-line. I've chosen to focus on the Tigers this year because you're going to get saturated, rightly so, with opinions and coverage from the great guests you bring on about Alabama, Georgia, the consensus, 1A and 1B. You can put 2 out whichever you want in 1A, and that's to be determined. And LSU is going to have something to say about the SEC West this year. You would figure Tennessee maybe in the East, but Auburn is one of those teams that it's not crazy to assume that Auburn could be a fly in the ointment, as Tim Brando liked to call things. Knocking off someone that they have no business beating and determining the standings in that way. So you focus on O-line. I think when we get to December, if Auburn has an 8, certainly a 9-win, shockingly successful year, I think the MVP on this coaching staff may be Jake Thornton, the offensive line coach that Hugh Freeze brought in, because it is, first of all, there's a huge supply problem. Jason Caldwell on your show has opined about this many times. There's not great offensive linemen with all the measurables and ability and experience growing on trees. But this guy goes out in the portal, brings in, I think the best one is going to be Avery Jones at center from East Carolina. And then Dylan Wade, the Tulsa kid, that's a legitimate tackle, Rob, that we haven't seen since, I'll think his name in a minute, that was a left tackle at Auburn and has had some time in the NFL. So, and then add Gunnar Britton, who's coming along, Xavier Miller, and you already have Jeremiah Wright sitting down there. So I think this is a truly above average O-line, which is not hard to do at Auburn because we've possibly had a bottom 2 or 3 in the conference offensive line for two years running.
I mean, that's a great point. It's not unusual for an offensive lineman to take a couple of years, maybe 3 years to develop just when they get to college. And Auburn's been throwing a lot of guys out there way too early. The new offensive line, Jake Thornton, look what he did at Ole Miss in that system with Lane Kiffin. So he's used to having to do a lot of different stuff. And I think that's going to be a plus. And I'm excited about it. And Doug, stay on with us because we're going to bring Vince Ferrara on from the Sports Animal up in Knoxville. He does Tennessee baseball with John Wilkerson. And also, really, we brought him on. He works with Jimmy Himes up there, the Knoxville Sentinel Sports Animal, who's on our show a lot. Jimmy's semi-retired March 31st, Doug, but when you know as much as he does about Tennessee, SEC, and college football and baseball and all like that, hopefully Jimmy Himes will never retire because he's one of our favorites. But Doug, real quick before we bring Vince on in here, I think your take is spot on. You're talking about the offensive line. And, yeah, we don't know all these guys because there's so many new ones, but there's a bunch of them to where Auburn could actually legitimately have a 2-deep depth chart on the offensive line.
Yeah, and speaking of the running back room, it's refreshingly unusual for volatile information. I'm referring to the video gate a couple months ago, but you're hearing nothing about it coming out of Lee County, and I consider that a refreshing thing. That suggests to me that the investigation is moving along.
Yeah, I think, Doug, we lost you there for a second, but I think that investigation will be
all the players in question at Auburn at most suspended a game or two, which early season will probably just add up to keeping them fresh.
Yeah, because the trip to California, they're going to have fun on that one. It's gonna. Doug, let's bring in Vince Ferrara from Sports Animal up in Knoxville.
Nefarious
Doug,
in a way that. You okay?
Yeah, we're losing you. Your signal's going in and out, so
you may want to reboot.
Yeah, I can hear you now, but finish out. Yeah. Okay, I couldn't hear you there for a second, but you were talking about.
But we'll rock on. Anyway, I'm just saying. I think by July or so, that issue will meet.
Yeah, I'm hoping it is. Doug, come back in with us here as soon as you can. We lost you there for a second, but Vince Ferrara, we got Game 3 today for Tennessee down in Hattiesburg against Southern Miss. I think that's at 2 or 3 o'clock, 3 o'clock Eastern. But, man, Tennessee, I predicted they would make it to Omaha because I said I think they're more relaxed this year. Tony Vitello did not forget how to coach. He's a hell of a coach, and we watched that game last night. That was a big win. What's your gut feeling right now with Tennessee? Mainly, it's who's left in the pitching in the bullpen.
Yeah, actually, Rob, great to be on with you once again, as always. Actually, a 6 p.m. Eastern time first pitch, 5 o'clock Central, and there's weather throughout the Southeast again. So who knows if they'll start on time, if they'll even get the game in today. It'll be hit or miss. It depends on if lightning is in the area, because that's an automatic. They have a turf field, just like it's the same turf, in fact, just like in Knoxville. So they should be able to play through some rain as long as it's not a torrential downpour. And unlike Lindsey Nelson Stadium, the only dirt at Lindsey Nelson is the mound. The mound is turf also. So they should be able to play through some rain. So maybe they can get the game in. The one thing that would nix it would be the lightning. But in terms of pitching, Tennessee only used 2 pitchers and 2 future first-rounders, and Chase Dolander and Chase Burns, and that was it. And Dolander was on the ropes there in Game 2, gave up 4 runs, and it then was a sharply hit ball to third. Zane Denton, the Alabama transfer, made a diving stop along the line and then recorded the out. Great stretch by Blake Burke on the other end. And so they kept that inning from continuing with nobody outs in the inning. Who knows if Chase Dolander sees another batter or gets through that inning, or if Southern Miss adds more runs to their total. To me, that was the play of the game in that defensive stop. And then he told Chase Dolander, I got your back. And Dolander relaxed. He started throwing strikes, having more conviction and just letting it go. And his fastball started to have more movement because he was pitching with more confidence and conviction and relaxed some. And I've said this a bunch of times. I've said it to you that the way this team plays defense and everything else plays off of that. And that sparked Dolander start putting up zeros. He retired 18 of the next 19 Southern Miss batters until he had the leadoff walk in the ninth. And then you saw Tennessee get going offensively right after that in the next inning with their 6-run explosion in the fourth inning with the Blake Burke 479-foot bomb that one-hopped the church beyond right field. Just insane. And then Tennessee got a RBI single from Jared Dickey and then an error by the center fielder that cleared the bases to make it 6-4, and they added 2 more to get the win. But as far as pitching, Tennessee's in great shape. They have not used many arms. They have a ton more ready to go. They will start Drew Beam, who's been their Game 3 starter all season long. He's outstanding. He's probably pitched better than his numbers, which is 8-4 and 4.09 ERA. Yeah.
Yeah, all that. I thought we're going to take a quick break and want to come back
Sure.
because Tennessee only used 2 pitchers or 3 pitchers in that 14-inning win over Clemson. I want to talk about that pitching coach right after this break on Sidelines. Vince Ferrara is on with us right now, sports animal up in Knoxville. Also, Doug Dean in Birmingham. This thing about the pitching with Tennessee, you were making a lot of great salient points right before the break, Vince. And Doug, you heard him. If you go back to that Clemson 14-inning win in the Clemson Regional for Tennessee, they used 3 pitchers. Clemson uses 10. Tennessee yesterday used, Vince, correct, only 2 pitchers. Got
and only 3 in Game 1.
Yeah. Let's talk about that pitching coach and the staff there at Tennessee, because that right there may be the secret weapon, kind of like what we use trout fishing.
Yeah, and I thought that would be a difference maker between the 2 teams, that if you do go 3 games, and I think even if Tennessee makes it to Omaha, it could be an advantage for them. The depth of arms and the quality power arms with elite stuff that Tennessee has, there were some inconsistencies at times, but a lot of Tennessee's pitchers are pitching their best. Now, Andrew Lindsey was not as sharpest, but he's been their most consistent of their starters. He wasn't quite as sharp in Game 1, but everybody's available for Game 3 except for, I think, Lindsey and Dolander, the 2 starters. Everybody else, Burns came in. He only had 10 pitches, although he was getting hot for a while. Seth Halverson in Game 1, he went 4 innings, but he didn't have a hot pitch total. So 40 pitches. So he's been a reliever. He can come back. They have everybody on staff, including a lot of really good arms they haven't had to use yet, because of how good their starting pitching and relief pitching has been. So, yeah, Tennessee has more options than Southern Miss does, especially because Southern Miss now, I don't think they can come back with their ace. Maybe their Game 1 starter, Oldham, who didn't get to finish because of the weather delay, he could potentially come back. But the arm, the depth of pitching staff is in Tennessee's favor. Frank Anderson's as good of a pitching coach as there is in the country. And the talent is there too. So I think that is a plus for Tennessee if it matters in this game.
Yeah. Doug?
Vince, great take. I can tell your baseball IQ vastly passes
off the charts.
Appreciate it.
Also, I may be an Auburn guy. You got to pick a team, right? But I've never been a Tennessee Vols hater. I love the program, the tradition. Obviously in football, and goodness knows their Heupel's got them thinking big, and rightly so. But on baseball, I'll make a bold pick, and I promise you, Vince, I'm not trying to use some kind of reverse mojo to hurt ball nation. I get the feeling that the path that Tennessee is having to, the gauntlet that they're having to endure on the road, is preparing them. I think they're going to find a way to beat Southern Miss tonight. And their biggest threat will be the weatherman. But I think the Tennessee Vols are poised to be that team yet again from the Southeastern Conference that wins it all in Omaha. You heard it here first, Rob.
Yeah, I will not, with that pitching that you talked about, Vince. That's what I'm with Doug. You're only using their strategy is going to pay off.
Well, guys are worthy of staying in ball games. I mean, Dolander, he's had tough starts to games, but then once he gets going and locked in, I mean, he shows he has top 5, top 10 draft stuff. That's where he was projected coming into the year. You know, he carried the burden of those expectations, so he wasn't as sharp for a fair part of the year. And you know, once he was moved back to the game 2 starter in the weekend rotation, it kind of relaxed him a little bit and saw that he still has good stuff, worked with a mental coach and trying to be able to handle that and then handle adversity within a game. And man, that's paid off too, because just like with yesterday, he was able to bounce back after giving up the 4 runs. And you see it all sort of pay off and come together for him. And if he doesn't keep Southern Miss at 0, it doesn't matter, you know, what they're doing offensively. They're not getting back in that game. So, and then you have Chase Burns, who was another guy that's projected to be a top 10 pick in next year's draft. He had a lot of preseason expectations as an All-American in the weekend rotation. When he was moved to the bullpen at the same time that Dolander was slid to the 2 spot in the weekend rotation, then you saw him kind of relax, and he got 3 outs in 10 pitches facing just 2 batters to close that game. So now you have an elite arm on the back end to close out ball games. He can go multiple innings and you can stretch him, or he can just come in to a tough situation and close the door. And then Tennessee has a bunch of guys that can go long or short and middle relief in between. It's a luxury that not a ton of people have with power arms at that.
Yeah.
I'm curious on the, you know, you people can debate how critically important in game, not recruiting, not the total deal with coaching, but Tennessee's at times controversial baseball coach. I still think he's an outstanding coach. But have you noticed, as someone so close to the program, any pivot or shift in his style coaching this year? And I really don't mean just the fiery antics in game, but is he approaching his team or the game itself any differently as we head into this run at Omaha?
I think he's learning, and some of that is learning about his team and adjusting to them. But he's got stability in his staff. Frank Anderson mentioned with him, he's been there from the jump when they came on staff 6 years ago. Josh Elander, associate head coach, has been there from the start as well. That's huge to have that stability in the coaching staff. But I don't think I'd notice a change. He had to adjust because he had a very different team this year. He couldn't just rely on the same guys. He had 8 new position players. So it took a while for them, and they ended up over time learning each other, doing more team bonding stuff. And you saw it pay off. He didn't point back to that in the post game, but having like Cal Stark have a great at bat with 2 outs to keep that inning going and set up Jared Dickey for his single that doubled the lead, put Tennessee on top. If Cal Stark doesn't have a great at bat to get on base, and then Ensley hit by pitching gets on base, then that doesn't set up Dickey to be able to deliver that clutch hit. And them having adversity and fighting through it is something that they weren't doing for each other, picking somebody up, Denton with his play. So because they came together as a team, then you're starting to see those things pay off. So I think he had to coach this team differently and sort of learn about them as the year went on, versus in the past where he set his lineup at the beginning of the year, and because there was a difference between the starters and everybody else with a couple of exceptions, he could just ride those out, and they were hammering teams last year. It's a little bit more touch and go this year, where he had to have more of a pulse of his team. And then look, he made a great decision in moving Lindsey into the rotation and then Burns into the bullpen. He's had to make those decisions. He went with, when they were struggling offensively and defensively, he picked his 8 in the field based on defense. and then they delivered on defense, and then they've been their best offensive lineup too. Guys that have been more defensive have now contributed offensively. So he's made some good decisions. It hasn't been perfect, and it's baseball, so it's not going to, you're not going to succeed every decision. But he's coached differently, but not in a drastic style different, just because the makeup of this team was a little bit different.
Yep.
Yeah, interesting observation. This is one of our listeners over at North Atlanta, Pat Cornelius. I'm sure no one else stayed up, but the Stanford pitcher threw a gem last night. Complete game with 16 strikeouts. Announcers were losing it over his pitch count, ended up throwing 156 pitches. Now, Pat Cornelius, I went to Auburn with him. His older brother's the pitching coach for the Colorado Rockies. Pat knows a thing or two about baseball. He's from L.A., Vince. Lower Alabama, Thomasville. But
I know.
He and Ray Mooring from Huntsville gave me one of the great. I love this one when someone hits a home run. He goes, "He's gone yard." I don't know if you ever say that on the deal, but Vince, you and Doug, Vince is part of the UT Vol network, one of the top networks in the country. And my wife's cousin, Mark Ham, has that ginormous tailgate up in Knoxville. You got to go see it by the Torch guy there on the hill. And we went for the Tennessee-Alabama game last year. That's when Roman Harper came over and ate brisket with us for an hour. He loved that brisket. We all did. But his Will Ham, you need to meet this young man. He's a rising senior at Tennessee, Vince, wants to go into sports management and media. He's interning with the Braves this summer. And last year he got a job driving Coach Heupel's family and some of the coaches around on game day and whatever like that. But Will Ham, great kid. And then Mark has a daughter, Molly, who'll be a sophomore, guess where? At Georgia. He's like, I don't know what to do. but he said it's kind of what, and then hopefully his other daughter will go to Tennessee and make him happy. But this baseball stuff, Doug, great observations, and both you and Vince. But I threw that in about Stanford. Man, who is the team that looks like, in y'all's opinion, that is – I think Tennessee wins today. Southern Miss is good, but Tennessee, Tony Vitello – they seem more relaxed than they were last year when they were the number one overall seed. And I'm okay with guys having fun playing baseball. I remember Sunday afternoon on SEC Network when it was announced Tony Vitello was becoming the new coach at Tennessee when he left Arkansas. Nothing wrong with it. They have a lot of fun with it. If anything, it's brought a lot of interest for college baseball, and that's a good thing. America's a better country when NASCAR is good and when baseball is good, especially in college.
Well, they're not the same team as they were last year with those personalities. They're different. They're just not as boisterous, as offensive to some, as they're not the lightning rod that they were last year, just different personalities. So now I think some of the sensitivity of umpiring was largely because of Tennessee, because people would have a problem with them and it would, really flare up, the heat of the battle. You still have some chirping, but because everybody wants to beat Tennessee off of last year's reputation, not necessarily because of what they're doing this year. There was video after Chase Dolander struck out Dickerson, the best hitter for Southern Miss, to end the eighth. Dickerson is staring back at Dolander and then telling him, "You suck." And Dolander's like, "Really? What?" And so he points at the scoreboard and says, "There you go." So, he struck you out. Like, he doesn't suck. He's going to be a first-round pick. But that just shows you the intensity of wanting to be the brand and the name of Tennessee. And it's not really because of anything that's happening this year. It's off of reputation from a year ago. It's just a different team. I think there's other teams that do more in terms of celebration than Tennessee does, but a lot of it is off of last year.
Name a couple. Put you on the
to me, one of them was a team they saw last week in the regional. I mean, in Clemson was they were animated. I see who was it? Even Southern Miss. I mean, they're kind of hot doggish. Also, I see everybody doing gestures at second base that have criticized Tennessee. There's just, a number in the SEC. Kentucky does a dance at second base. Vanderbilt stomps on home plate, and they have been doing that for years, but nobody said anything about them because, it's Vanderbilt. But look, it's, to me, I think it was way overplayed last year, but I think that catching the national attention is what changed the rules of sensitivity, and you're seeing guys get warned and kicked out. The Clemson outfielder that was tossed, I think some of that, the chirping, they want to cut it off. And it's largely because of the rules they're forcing the umpires to call things a lot quicker, but you really haven't seen a whole lot of incidents at all this year in terms of Tennessee. But the desire to beat them, there's no doubt it's been there all year.
I think what happens with human beings is there's certain things, like certain bells that are hard to unring, and fans that still think of Tennessee that way. Coach Vitello could be there 15 more years, and there's a segment of fan bases that will still remember him as the same guy in 2022.
Right.
And I wanted to comment, and that's not fair, and I'm sure there's some umpires that get that in and have a hair trigger on some situations. I wanted to comment on, why would a bold pick like that? I don't think it's that bold, but really look at how tough it is to survive the SEC gauntlet. I'm a believer when you get to Omaha, which teams have been tested the hardest, which teams have had to be in the really high stress moments. I can't put Wake Forest in that group. They're everybody's darling right now, and Crimson Tide would like to forget that game yesterday. But I think what I would expect to happen with Wake Forest, and it's almost certainly going to be against an SEC team. Maybe that'll be the Vols or LSU, but the moment will be slightly too big for Wake Forest to finally get back to Omaha. And if they prove me wrong, that's a hat tip to them.
Yeah, it's hard to say because they have a lot of similarities to last year's Tennessee team. Number one in home runs, number one in ERA. It's a hard duo to have on both ends. And look, they got to the College World Series being the number one team with the expectations going in. And last year, Tennessee did not. Tennessee had the challenging schedule a year ago. It's always a gauntlet in the SEC, but it didn't necessarily pay off. Notre Dame didn't have the schedule that Tennessee did. They were able to win. So I do think at times that can pay off for you, but at times it's just strictly matchup and where the team's just mental state is at that point. And Rob brought up this team being more relaxed. It's a completely different edge to them that they have than the beginning of the year when they started 5-10 at SEC play. They were carrying the burden of expectations from last year and going to the College World Series the year before. Then when they had the tough start and they reset, then they were able to kind of relax. Now there's been moments of tension that pops back up, but in general, they're able to relax. Still kind of game to game. If they defend, then they relax in the box and on the mound. So there are tension times that still will pop up, but overall they're in a better place, I think. And, Wake Forest, if they're in a right mental spot, they are so good, just like I thought last year's Tennessee team would be, so good that they could overcome that. But, we'll see. It'll be uncharted territory for sure.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I mean, interesting observation from a listener who said Tennessee last year was like the villain in the WWF. But, this team this year is talented. They lost some players, but Dolander as the pitcher. Doug, when you got a guy like that and you're doing 2 or 3 and your opponents are using 8 and 10, that's the genius of this team is that pitching coach. That's why I wanted to ask about him. But go ahead, Doug.
Well, I was just saying that as far as Wake Forest goes, that Tony's spot on about sometimes having played a tough gauntlet gets you more ready for the big moments in postseason, sometimes not. But you look at Ole Miss a year ago, there was nothing prior to postseason. There was almost nothing to portend that Ole Miss could get that hot. So, and again, I think it's partly because they know what great baseball looks like, so getting through an SEC schedule. I'll be interested to see, knowing what we're talking about, Tennessee's strength and how rested their pitchers are. Does that play into any batting strategy? Do you want to take more, try to get pitch count higher? Because if you can get past the other team's starter, that's baseball 101, I realize, but Tennessee has a unique advantage that they can continue. It's going to be hard to beat Tennessee with these staffs that are having to rely on 2, 3, even 4 guys out of the bullpen.
Well, Southern Miss is going to start a guy that was in the weekend rotation to begin the year and then went to the bullpen and then was a weekday starter. And then they've used him to close out their last 2 big postseason events. And one of them was a conference tournament, pitched the last game against Louisiana for them to win there. And then he pitched in the series, the regional clinching game against Penn as well. Now he's gone just 3 1/3 in both of those outings, so they're gonna go to the bullpen fairly early. But has some ability. Is just a sophomore. They've used their closer Storm, who was very effective against Tennessee in Game 1, and pitched yesterday and to finish off Game 1. How much can he come back? That'll be a question. But I do think Tennessee will have an arm advantage. The one that they might not in terms of depth of staff would be Wake Forest. And they're on that side of the bracket as Wake Forest. Also, Texas, who they played 2 years ago in the College World Series, potentially for a winner's bracket game or an elimination game. And then they would obviously face LSU, who Tennessee would have in Game 1. Tennessee would have a staff advantage in terms of depth, but LSU would have the best pitcher in college baseball in Paul Skeens. The way Jay Johnson has run his rotation is he's pitched them in Game 1 of everything. So Tennessee would likely see Paul Skeens in Game 1. So can you utilize the depth of your bullpen of your arms if you can't get to LSU's pen and you're facing that lineup against Paul Skeens? So it is that could be one of those things that could offset potentially what would be a strength for Tennessee if they get there and if they were to see Paul Skeens in Game 1.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, we've been almost an hour into this show. It's a 2-hour show, 6 days a week. Haven't even talked college football. That's the power of college baseball. And this is what why I think, and we had 88 or maybe 100 former SEC players on Major League Baseball rosters on opening day. And 48% of the players that were on opening day rosters in Major League Baseball played at 4-year college. Some of them you got to play at least 3. So I think we're growing the popularity of the game. And Vince, I know you've been up since probably 3:30, 4 o'clock, or 4 probably. But really appreciate you taking your time to be on the show with us. Got a lot of Tennessee fans over here in Memphis and all over that listen because of the web and radio, whatever. But bottom line, this is going to be a big game today, and we'll be watching it. It's going to be big. But, Doug, I know you want to say something. And, Vince, I know you probably want to get some sleep, but you probably got a full day ahead of you, knowing you.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Vince would know. I'm just watching the Hattiesburg weather, and most of the showers and thunderstorms are expected after 4 p.m. Vince, do you know do they have the ability, the latitude to move the start earlier in light of the weather, or no?
I doubt it, because they waited till midnight, till after the Stanford, Texas game was complete to announce the start time. ESPN apparently had their windows where they wanted to place those games. And if Texas had beaten Stanford and that super regional was over, you would have seen Tennessee Southern Miss in that 8 o'clock ESPN spot. But because that went to 3, that got the primetime spot. Tennessee and Southern Miss slid to their other open window. This is all about TV. ESPN is controlling all that. It would have been nice for the NCAA to communicate the either-or scenario rather than saying absolutely nothing and everyone complaining about it till midnight. But I would be surprised that they would do that for TV and weather. If it was a regular season game, yeah, they would, and many of them did to avoid weather. But there is still some chance of rain during the day, so that wouldn't even be a guarantee. And you'd lose the TV slot. I don't see them doing it. They may lose the game anyway into tomorrow, which would be a real disadvantage for whoever wins that game. I would hope that the winner of this game would be in the Saturday game. I think that's the case, but it's still 1 or 2 fewer days of rest than everybody else. So LSU wrapped it up yesterday. So they wrapped it up Sunday. You would be going into Tuesday. So, that's significant, but hey, TV drives a bus to trying to grow the sport. So I think that is where the priority would be.
And you know what, Rob, I'm telling you, and you can ask Butch this next time he's on, Butch Thompson, college baseball is this close to being a serious revenue sport. And it has it at some programs already, but I think it's going to start competing with basketball to get better TV revenue deals.
I think it is. And this is interesting, Vince. I'll let you go just and let people know how they can follow you. Butch Thompson said on the show last year, he said, the problem we have a lot of times in sports and in society, business, people's lives is it's not because we aim too high and miss. It's because we aim too low and hit, and people think that's okay. This is making the interest. Here it is. And I'm getting several texts from listeners that are saying, feel free to skip football occasionally. We don't want to burn everybody out on football. I got my credentials and my hotel reservations for media days in Nashville coming up. But look, Vince, you are a baseball junkie. I got to ask you before you go and then let people, what's your favorite sport? Because if you're this passionate and good and knowledgeable on baseball, I love this passion and we need this. What's your favorite sport?
I appreciate that. It's very nice, especially coming from you guys. It's actually football. I call the games on radio for Tennessee, and I don't call all of them. John Wilkerson goes on the road. He's a longtime voice of Tennessee baseball and has so many just in electric calls to an exciting Tennessee moments. And I'm hoping that if Tennessee gets to Omaha, that I will get to be there and go with them. That's still a little bit TBD. One, they got to get there too. Yeah. We got to get it worked out with everybody. Plus, we have live broadcasts with remotes because we both host the morning show. So you know how that goes. You still live broadcast. Somebody's got to be there. So that may prevent me from going. We'll see. But football, college football, NFL, and that's why I love the draft so much, is because those two worlds come together. But baseball is up there. Love it, especially the college sport, which has so much passion and just being involved in it day to day. That's where I guess I have a little bit more knowledge and excitement towards it. But football carries it pays the bills around here in the South. You know it, guys. So we talked football today. We talked what the schedule might look like for Tennessee on the show today with 8 games, and people ripping me because I had too hard of a schedule. We can get into that the next time. But I would say one, football, and baseball right after that, and soccer's up there too, which does not match with everybody else. So
now look, find me somebody who has a football player who played soccer. They got great footwork. But go ahead, Doug.
I'm sorry, Vince. Best of luck to the Vols today. I think you're going to get it done.
Appreciate it. I hope you're right with the prediction. That'll be a fun ride for sure. And Dave Serrano, former Tennessee coach, called into our station. Rob, I think I mentioned to you last time, he heard a media member that covers the Vols kind of talk about some criticisms of the team and things that they might hold them back. Dave Serrano called in, was listening, and he said Tennessee is going to be the last team standing. So maybe he was just putting some extra pressure on Tony Vitello. I don't know, but Serrano's a class act, and I thought that was cool. So it's Doug, and Dave Serrano on that limb. So
that's powerful. Let people know how they can follow you, though, and we'll do this again next week. And you're welcome anytime on the show. Really appreciate you taking time. You're a professional's professional.
Man, I appreciate that, guys. At Vince Sports, VINCE Sports, our website, 991thesportsanimal.com. Just go to the podcast section, look for Sports Talk, and you can hear the morning show with John Wilkerson and myself. And anywhere you get the Vol Network, you'll have our calls on there as well for Tennessee baseball.
I love it. Thanks so much. Have a great one.
All right, you guys do the same. Appreciate you.
You bet. That is Vince Ferrara up in Knoxville and covering the Vols. This has been a lot of fun. I think, Matt Dean, you know this as an athletic director, now associate AD, and as a basketball coach, how much fun this time of year is. And you think about baseball on all levels. The growth of the sport it's impressive, mainly because we're getting so much more into the college game. You start watching these guys. It's not just on your school's team and on everyone else that you play. Go, yeah, we played against that guy. You're going to watch him. Iowa this year got into the tournament. And baseball, the more these teams like Iowa, I'm willing to bet that Iowa schedules some SEC series to start the season like Indiana did coming down to Auburn last year. They've got money. They got everything you need at Iowa. Why not do that?
No, it makes total sense. And Rob, good morning to you. And to follow up a little bit on your prior conversation, I watched Tennessee and Southern Miss yesterday, and Tennessee is really resilient. I mean, you look at the way they beat Clemson on their last strike in the 9th inning. You look at yesterday, they're coming in a suspended game down 4-0. They get back in that game. Though they didn't win that game, the important thing is they made Southern Miss expend a pitcher or two that they probably didn't want to. And then down 4-0 in the third of game 2, Rob, you talk about a resilient bunch. The next thing you know, they got a 6th spot and they hold on to win. And I'm kind of with Doug and Vince. I'm thinking the Vols today are going to get it done. Though, major props to Southern Miss. I was doing a little research on their longtime coach. I believe it's Scott Berry, who's going to retire after this season. And they have an outstanding squad. It wouldn't shock me if they got it done. But Tennessee, I just think after yesterday, forcing USM's hand in game 1 to go to different arms rather quickly, and then they were able to, their starter, his name escapes me right now. I think it's Dolan. I could be wrong. Had a tough 3rd inning, and all of a sudden he goes for 8 innings and saves their bullpen. I thought that was key for today. I think Tennessee has a ton of arms left. I'm really looking fun to watch that game tonight. And, yesterday, I wouldn't be remiss to not speak of my Ducks. Oregon lost a tough one. Their pen could not throw strikes. But Oral Roberts, Rob, Oral Roberts is legit. They have an outstanding ball club. And quite frankly, Oral Roberts is good enough to win the whole thing, as is anyone else. I mean, I'm looking at Florida and LSU. I think they can get it done as well. You look what Wake Forest did to Alabama yesterday, 22-5. That's after the first game was 5-4. Wake Forest came into the Super Regionals, Rob, I think the 1 overall seed. And then Virginia. So the ACC is represented. The SEC is represented. Stanford, Texas today is going to be an interesting game. And then I'm really looking forward to watching Tennessee tonight.
Yeah, Tennessee, Chase Dolander, he was talking about. What's interesting, and we referenced this with Vince Ferrara, who's on the Vol Baseball Network, calls a lot of the games with John Wilkerson. Yeah. But again, someone's got to be back there because they do a daily sports radio show, which would be 5 to 8 Central, 6 to 9 Eastern on the sports animal in Knoxville. So he covers a lot. But you go back to the Tennessee-Clemson game the week before that went 14 innings. Tennessee only used 3 pitchers. Clemson used 10.
Yeah.
That's having a huge pair on you to have that much confidence and faith that, wow, he's going to stick it out. You'll see sometimes in the first inning, a pitcher runs into some resistance, and you'll see half a dozen guys doing the old speed sprint out there to the bullpen. That does a lot for your confidence. That it either breaks you or it inspires you.
Yesterday, Rob, I heard in the broadcast, and I don't know if Vince brought this up, but Todd Walker was doing the broadcast, I believe, former LSU star. And
he is fantastic on the air, isn't he? God, he's good.
But I think he mentioned that, they felt like they had 6 SEC quality starters on their staff. That's an amazing stat. And it goes back to what you said in that game where Clemson tried so hard to win that game, they burnt all their guys for game 1. They ended up not getting to the Super Regionals. And Tennessee is still have people out there because they've been able to stretch some of these guys. I think they feel pretty good about their matchup today in terms of their pitching.
They do. In talking with Vince Ferrara, they do. And there's a lot of confidence. Now, this could be the last college baseball game for Southern Miss's coach, who's retiring. He's been with the program a long time. I think he's been the head coach 14 or 15 of those years. Right. That's a beautiful baseball field there in Hattiesburg, and they're on top of each other. But that's just a great location. Hattiesburg's nickname is the Hub City. I've run that triathlon a number of times at the Canebrake subdivision called the Hub City Hustle, but it's also one of the most humid places on earth, along with Venice, Italy, New Orleans, the Mississippi Delta surrounded by rice fields here in Memphis and Park. And it's like when you go outside in the summer, it's like sticking your head, opening the oven to see how much longer the cookies have to bake. It's intense. But I think Tennessee gets the job done today. I do. And I think day in and day out, week in and week out, you're tested. But that pitching staff, what Tennessee's doing, I'm not guaranteeing a win today, but to only use 2 and 3 in these kinds of games, that's not luck.
No, and I think the coach obviously knows his personnel, knows his pitching staff, knows their expectations are to be in Omaha, right? And they have a plan. And quite frankly, they didn't panic. And their offense, when they get going, they're very electric. They sometimes.
We're going to take a quick break. We're going to take a quick break. Be right back. Sorry, I missed it, Mildred.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne back with Coach Matt Dean. Hopefully Franz will be able to join us. Hope everything's all well down there in Gainesville. Of course, got to be happy because the Gators are going to College World Series. Interesting observation from a listener. Having lived in Bay St. Louis, which is on the coast, not too far from Hattiesburg, when I ride during the summer months. It is. Yeah, you're right. It's one of the most humid places on earth. But Southern Miss baseball, Matt, it's good. And there's good baseball all over the country. And we know last 2 years, Mississippi State and last year Ole Miss won the College World Series national championship. I think Tennessee is going to win today, but wow, if Southern Miss gets there and wins it all, that might be the greatest story to happen in college sports, or if not the greatest, one of the greatest. It's been a long time. I think you had that period 2009, 10, 11, 12, and 13. Alabama wins the national championship in 2009, Auburn in 10, Alabama 11, Alabama 12, and then Auburn 13 seconds. They came up short against Florida State in 2013. That in football may never be repeated, but in baseball, Southern Miss pretty damn good. And in the college game, everyone has the same thing, the pitching. Tennessee wins, 8-4 last night? Yeah. Nolander, like you say, he had that rough second or third inning. and he stuck it out. That's a lot of faith to put in a guy who I think Vince Ferrara is right. He's going to be a top first-round draft pick for the majors, and I think he'll have a great career.
You know what's one of the most remarkable things, Rob, you just mentioned it, is they put that graphic up yesterday on the broadcast. They talked about Mississippi State in 21, Ole Miss in 22, and the what if scenario if Southern Miss gets to Omaha and wins it. And when you get to Omaha, all bets are off, right? And most of the times the teams that get this far are playing really, really good baseball. And how dominant I think the young man's name is Oldham that was yesterday or 2 days ago before the weather hit, right? They're up 4-0. They're cruising in the fifth. That game gets suspended because of Tennessee's pitching depth. You basically wiped Oldham out, who may have been on target for a complete game or definitely 7, 8, 9 innings. Did the weather alone turn the tide of this series because of Tennessee's pitching depth? Because Tennessee gets the 3 runs in the fifth or sixth, I believe. The next thing you know, Southern Miss has to go into their pen, and then they used, they got the win, and then Tennessee down 4-0 comes back to win game 2. I still contend this, though. I think it's a really great venue. It's a tough place to play. The crowd's going to be electric. You see a lot of Vol fans in the stands. They always travel really, really well, as do most SEC teams, to postseason competition. I'm just curious to see the nerve situation. It's going to be anxious. In baseball, I played 1 year collegiately. Can teams make the routine play? Can they avoid the error, extend the inning? I think the defense are going to be really important. I think Tennessee has a chance today. If they can break through, they would be a really fun team to watch in Omaha. Don't you think, Rob? I mean, with what they bring to the table, their coaching situation. I heard you talk to Vince about how Coach V has toned it down a little bit. They seem more focused to me on the task at hand. I'm really anxious today because I think Tennessee wins. I think they're one of those teams that could carry it through.
I do too. And last year they were the number 1 overall seed, lost in that super regional to Notre Dame, good Notre Dame team. But this year, the first half they were struggling. In the second half, it was Tennessee and Auburn were the 2 hottest teams.
Yeah,
and they've continued that. Their pitching and their home run hitters. I mean, last year they had statistically one of the best years in the history of college baseball, hitting home runs. I think it hit 157 or whatever.
Yeah.
This year's team, I think they have toned it down, but they were the villain. I mean, the media loves to have a villain. Again, we one of our listeners referenced, the WWF. You've always got the villains out there that people that they love to hate, but I don't hate Tennessee at all. I think they're an outstanding team. This is year 6 for Tony Vitello. I think they get the job done today, but it will take everything that they've got and weather permitting. They don't need to have to be delayed until Tuesday. That's what they don't want to happen, because College World Series play will start in Omaha Friday, and it seems like it is an eternity. I mean, 10 days of baseball out there? I mean, it is a marathon. You've got to be really, really tough, but you've got to have depth. You got 35 players. You got 8 or 10 pitchers, but a lot of those other guys, if you get desperate that play other positions, they pitched in high school as well.
Couple things. If you get to Omaha and Todd Walker's accurate on your pitching depth, that's a huge plus. That's number 1. They got live bats. The ball that Blake Burke hit yesterday, I don't know if you saw that or saw a highlight for it. It was a missile. They said it was 478 feet, right center field. It hit off the church, it looked like, or bounced the church 1 hop over the parking lot at the stadium. So you could say that about a lot of teams we have left. I mean, You can look at Florida and LSU and say one of those two teams could make a run. My goodness, Wake Forest, everyone thinks they're the number one seed, at least coming in the Super Regional. They put up 22 runs in an elimination game against Alabama. And quite frankly, first game was 5-4. I know it's a short ballpark, but that's amazing. Virginia has a history in the Omaha series. You know, I'm telling you, the Oral Roberts team I watched the last couple nights, Rob, they're really, really good. They're really talented. There's a unique story in them, too. The last time they were in the World Series, I think, was 1978. And I think their head coach was a player from that team. I believe that's what I heard last night. So there's some great stories to this team. Don't count out the winner of Texas and Stanford. I think this is going to be 10 days of just pure fun. It's almost like having the ALCS and the NLCS and the World Series back-to-back for us, right? For us baseball junkies, right? It's just the best thing going. And if you're looking at that 10-day stretch, man, that's a lot to put on those arms. So you better be deep, otherwise you don't have a chance.
Yeah, you're right. It will be fun to watch. And I think about Oral Roberts basketball, ORU. I think about Oral Roberts being on TV. The evangelist saying, "In 1995, before midnight of the world's coming to an end." They got a lot of money out there at Oral Roberts. It's in Tulsa. And, you know, Tulsa, for those of you who have maybe short memories, remember Tulsa, Oklahoma, at one time was the oil capital of the world. Remember the Beverly Hillbillies. Mr. Brewster, who handled their oil money, was from Tulsa, Oklahoma, as Uncle Jed referred to it, Tulsa, Oklahoma. That's where, University of Tulsa, which is a little over 4,000, maybe 4,500 students. It's a private Presbyterian university, very small, but they've got the money out there in Tulsa still to this day to do, and they're good in every sport. I mean, and here's Oral Roberts. But, man, this is what makes it exciting. Remember when Coastal Carolina won it all in 15 or 16, the Chanticleers in college baseball. Baseball, you got 35 spots on the roster. Basketball, you got 13. Football, you got 85 scholarships. Rarely of these 35 guys, pitchers, probably 10 of them are pitchers. So other than that, you got 25 guys to play. But you can put a great baseball program together. Look at Dallas Baptist. Again, Oral Roberts. Wake Forest. Wake Forest hadn't been to the College World Series since 1955. Got to ask you this. And I hope Franz is okay. He never misses, but I'm sure something came up. But the Gators, this is their 11th. They've been to Omaha a bunch, and I think it might be their 10th or 11th. But Florida is a really strong team. Virginia has won a national championship in the last 7 or 8 years. We know Vanderbilt's won a couple of them. Right now, from what you've seen of all in the regionals, the super regionals now, that's all that matters. Who's your pick to win it all? I mean, you referenced Tennessee, and I think you're right. They get out of Hattiesburg today. They've got the right mix to do it.
First, before I give you my pick, I want to let you know we were watching Oral Roberts play Oregon. Games in Eugene, Oregon.
Yeah.
The fan base from Oral Roberts, they had a ton of people. Now, my wife and I talk like if our son was playing in a super regional, we'd get there as well. But I'm just telling you, there was a ton of support at that game yesterday. For me, I think I saw maybe in the pairings, Rob, are they putting Florida and LSU in the first round game, one of the first round games?
I've got to look that up. They will try to cancel the SEC out is what they'll do.
Right. I'm not going to go with the obvious in Wake Forest, which a lot of people may do. I'm going to be a homer today, and I'm going to go whoever wins. If Florida and LSU play in that first game, whoever wins that game's got, one up on the other in terms of the way they do this. I believe it's double elimination, so you get to the final two. Then I think it's 2 out of 3. I think that's the format. I could be mistaken. I'm going to go with LSU. That's what I'm going to do. And if Franz was here, he'd probably lecture me why I'm wrong, and I appreciate that. But I just have a feeling that they're going to find a way.
Well, the big thing, what LSU does is, any team would do, if you're not real deep in the bullpen for pitching, you're hitting. They call it, LSU started what they call guerrilla ball, just 9, 10, 11 runs. You don't have to have the best pitching staff. And people will tell you that LSU's pitching staff is not that deep. Paul Skenes, he transferred after his sophomore year. You have until the end, I believe, of your sophomore year to leave a service academy and transfer. But he was the best player in college baseball this year, I think people would say. Chase Dolander at Tennessee as a pitcher, he's right up there. I mean, you're talking 2 first-rounders. But you get to Omaha, and Frank Duffy sent a text late last night. He's out in Colorado going to Yellowstone, and they're going to head back starting Wednesday. He calls it Gomaha, Geaux.
That's right.
Gomaha. I love that. I've never seen, but the Omaha loves it when LSU comes to town because they're going to drive the ticket prices up through the roof there at the stadium. 25,000 people. The city of Omaha lays out the red carpet. Matt, it's an incredible environment. But Florida, LSU, see if Tennessee can get in there. It's going to be Oral Roberts being there. They'll be the underdog or whatever, but they will have a gazillion fans wanting to go there too. They've got the TV audience. Think about it. All the years of people sending in their money to Oral Roberts. I mean, this is maybe one of the toughest tickets we've ever seen in Omaha.
Well, you mentioned Paul Skenes from LSU. I had to look it up because I knew his stats were phenomenal. He's 1.77 ERA, and that's throwing against aluminum bats, mind you. Okay, that's pretty damn impressive. Okay,
that's incredibly impressive.
His whip is 0.78. He struck out 188 batters and only walked 18 batters in 107 innings. He's 12-2. He's had 17 starts. Pitched in arguably the deepest and toughest baseball league in America, in the SEC. So I do believe that, as a whole, maybe they don't have the pitching depth that you mentioned, but my gosh, they Dylan Cruz is hitting 433. Okay. 17 homers, 64 runs batted in. They still got a lot of bats. Okay. Tommy White has 22 home runs. I just got a feeling the way they're playing right now, as is everyone, and I get it. I like the fact that I think they got the best pitcher left and maybe the best overall hitter left in Dylan Cruz. That's what I'm basing my theory on. Okay?
Yeah, and that's right there. I mean, the pitching and the hitting combination, Tennessee can do it. Tennessee, that their home run hitting is what really sticks out about them. But again, in these big games, using only 2 and 3 pitchers, it's not that they're afraid to go deep; they don't have to.
Right.
And it takes a lot of nerve for a coach, manager, major leagues pitching coach to say, like, stick it out, stay in there, because it's so easy to pull the trigger and go to your bullpen. And it's a delicate balance there. You think about quarterbacks. Everybody remembers Steve Spurrier in the 93 season, the 94 season. Terry Dean out of Naples, Florida, is the quarterback for the Gators. He's pulled, and Danny Werfel goes in, or Werfel's pulled, and Dean goes in. Noah Brandeis, all these quarterbacks, they always were looking over their shoulders. But no one ever talks about how Steve Spurrier, when they came to the sidelines, often would say, that's on me. I put you in a bad position. That's my fault. But Danny Warfel, I think, in my opinion, other than Spurrier, is the greatest Gator quarterback ever. Tebow's incredible. Tebow won a national championship, and so did Danny Warfel. But Tebow had, Tebow was incredible, but Danny Warfel put up with a lot. He had to put up with Steve Spurrier for 5 years. Redshirted in 92, 93, 94, 95, 96. He's a tough guy. We're going to be right back, joined by Wess Moore is going to check in with us, ESPN 103.7 The Buzz in Little Rock, and talking more college baseball. But the bottom line is, Matt, you're right. LSU having maybe the best hitter and the best pitcher anywhere, that combination, that could do it. We'll talk right after this. Okay, Franz will be back with us tomorrow. Looking at the big picture of baseball, the SEC, it prepares you. There's no doubt, Matt, game in, game out. You're playing a really, really tough schedule. You've got TCU, Texas, all these, Virginia, Wake Forest from the ACC, both of them in. I want to go back to Wake Forest. 5-4, they beat Alabama. And then that next game, it's 22-5. Yeah. Is it the bats? Is it the strike zone? Is it the pitch count, pitch clock, all that? What is it? We've seen a lot of those kind of scores this year. Of course, we saw them 25 and 30 years ago with aluminum bats. That changed things. But I know that Butch Thompson has said on the show several times, the way they do the pitch clock and the way they call that strike zone, really it's the strike zone, how narrow it is. It's not called the same in the SEC as it is in, say, the Pac-12 or the Big 12. How big a deal is that right now?
I'm going to tell you what, the strike zone is huge. So last night I'm watching Oral Roberts and Oregon, right?
Yeah.
It's a 5-4 game. Oral Roberts is leading 5th or 6th inning, okay?
Yeah.
Oral Roberts, their last 6 runs, they had 1 hit. I can't see the walks and hit batsmen in a crucial error that really led to all those runs. It was, and the guys weren't even close. And that's what happens in the game 3 of a best of 3. When you've exhausted a lot of your pitching, you're using some first-year arms that have never been in this situation before, that have under 15 total innings in the whole year, Rob. And they're not seasoned. Obviously, they probably were really good in high school, but they're not throwing strikes. And if you're a hitter and you give them a lot of 2-0 and 3-1 counts, I call it the catbird seat, man, that's when you crush the baseball. I didn't watch the Alabama game because I was watching Tennessee, but I think by the 3rd inning, it was already 10-3 Wake Forest. So at that point, Alabama had exhausted probably at least 2 or 3 pitchers, and they knew they couldn't get it done.
Yeah, I agree. Real quick, Wess Moore is with us. I want to say something. Ann Camp Lee just texting me this. RumbleBoxingGym.com, one of our sponsors, had a huge grand opening with almost all the classes at capacity. Over 50 people attending ribbon cutting, including Chamber CEO Ted Townsend and Jeff Calkins, and at least that many at a grand opening party on Saturday. Cool. had mimosas, great food, and an Elvis impersonator. Have exceeded their member goal, and they're shooting to beat Nashville, trying to compete with Nashville. Over 3,000 prospects, a lot of them coming here from our show and other shows that are advertising for them. But need them to book and bag. They will be hooked. We're still selling BOGOs 2 for $23 for anyone who wants to try it. Shooting for 300 memberships. That is rumbleboxinggym.com, 1835 Union Avenue, Memphis, corner of Union and McLean, across from Walgreens. It is like swimming on land, 45-minute workouts, absolutely great. I'll give you 3 thumbs up. I only got 2, but I'll throw in an extra one. It's that good of a workout. It's worth every dollar, rumbleboxinggym.com. Let's head over to Little Rock, go west on I-40. Wes Moore, ESPN 103.7, The Buzz, and Fox Channel 16 sports director there in the capital city, Little Rock. Wes, wish we were talking about the Razorbacks winning a super regional and heading to Omaha, but are we seeing, again, is the SEC, the week in, week out, those weekend series that you play, the best thing you can do to get to Omaha? Because look at the map, the heat map that shows the 16 regionals, then the 8 super regionals. They play damn good baseball where it's warm, and you would think that other schools around the country might get heated indoor baseball facilities. Maybe they don't want to spend the money, but it's certainly a luxury to be in the South, isn't it? Yeah, Wes, are you there? Hopefully Wes is there. But Wes, just jump back in when you're on with us. But Matt, here we go. We got him again here. We had a little bit of an issue. Here we go. Okay, Wes, hopefully this is a better connection. You there with us?
I'm here. You got me?
Yeah, okay. I was just talking about the SEC, the week in and week out. It's so intense to prepare for you to be there in this league. There's no easy ways out. But what Arkansas? I wish we were talking about the Razorbacks being on the verge of going to, Omaha and all like that. But what are your thoughts about the teams that are still standing?
Oh man, you got some good hitting teams. You look at Wake Forest, how they're hitting the ball. Tulsa, man, I saw that firsthand. LSU, I thought LSU was the best hitting team I've seen all year, and then Arkansas, of course, ran into TCU, and then I watched Wake Forest hit the ball. Oral Roberts, what they were able to do. It is, the hitters and the home runs, and part of it is like you were mentioning, all these regionals and the super regionals being played in the South where it's starting to warm up and the wind is carrying the ball. It just seems like the balls are just flying out of the ballparks all over the country. But to me, it's offense, seeing a whole lot of offense over the weekend.
Yeah, and we've got to go back to Memphis right after the show, but we were in Parkin here yesterday, and when it rained 5 or 6 times yesterday. I mean, thunderstorms piled on top of each other like jets on the runway at LaGuardia, rush hour Friday, everybody trying to get home for the weekend. Franz Beard's on with us right now, and down at GatorBaitMedia.com, Matt Dean, coach over Associate AD at Rhodes College in Memphis. And, we're all been talking this whole show about college baseball. And Wes, the interest in baseball, Franz knows it from down in Gainesville, and it's almost like at Florida, they're used to being good in everything. Franz reminded me, the Gators, 260 SEC championships. You go anywhere, Wes, you get out to Omaha. It's not a bad trip for fans from anywhere really in the country if they want to go. But what was your takeaway? And I want to bounce it around with Franz and Matt, but this is for you, Wes. What was the takeaway from the Razorback fan base? Been to the World Series 2 of the last 3 years. Everybody remembers 2018 not catching the pop fly, but it's a program that every year is right there. You were a number 3 seed overall. What is the standard of Arkansas baseball to where, hey, we did it? What other than a national championship?
No, I think the standard has been set. It's to go to Omaha, and that's a very high standard. But that's where Arkansas is. Fans are disappointed that they're not going to Omaha this year. And this is a good program. It's one of the top programs in the country. They've got more wins than any other program in the country since 2018, 2017. And it is. I had to run for my yearly physical today, and the nurse was talking to me, and she was just so upset that Arkansas is not going to Omaha, that it is just something they kind of plan on. And it is. It's a great trip. And it's especially for those in Northwest Arkansas, it's an easy drive up to Omaha, and that's why you've seen the numbers of Arkansas fans there. And it's so much fun. I mean, it's actually one of my favorite trips that I get to make. And we were talking about it on the radio show today. I would go to Omaha even if Arkansas wasn't playing. It's like if we could get somebody to step up and sponsor our trip, we would go and broadcast and do our show from Omaha, because it's such a fun trip, and then you get to see quality baseball.
Yeah, I agree. And Butch Thompson says it's nothing like Father's Day in Omaha. It's a tradition. It's an incredible atmosphere. And Franz, your Gators are jumping here with Wess Moore at ESPN 103.7 The Buzz in Little Rock, who knows this hog program, and you summed it up well. The standard is Omaha, and if you have a standard like that, it makes people work extra hard because they don't ever want to come up short.
Well, this is Florida's 8th time to Omaha in the 15 years that Kevin O'Sullivan's been the head coach. So, yeah, fans here are spoiled. But I got to tell you what, the anticipation of going, it created such an atmosphere here Friday and Saturday night. We had 400 and something, which was a then on-campus state record for a baseball game Friday night. And then Saturday we get 88-71. And this is both games after long weather delays. I mean, it's raining and we got lightning and we got people sitting out there on the berms because they don't want to lose their place on the grass. Now, those are brave people, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, when you can see lightning and it's coming down, here's one, and all of a sudden 4 prongs of it go out, and you can see that in the sky, and you're willing to sit out on a grass berm wide open there, you are a very brave person. We had a bunch of them, and the atmosphere was unbelievable. And I know Wes knows that from Arkansas. Arkansas seats, 12,000 at the stadium there. And college baseball is getting to a point, at least in the SEC. The SEC is AA baseball. I don't care what anybody says about the rest of the country. This is class AA baseball. Yeah. Any way you look at it. And all you have to do is look at the players who are there. I mean, Florida pitches Hurston Waldrop, who I think is as good as Paul Skeens. Maybe, and look who he's pitching to. Over there, Will McGillis, going to go early in the draft. Ethan Petrie, not eligible this year, but he will be after next year, and he's going to be a first rounder. And that's who you're pitching to, guys like that. And their pitcher, Jack Mahoney, Saturday night, pitches well, but my gosh, it's hard to win when the other guy is throwing BBs at you. And but the atmosphere and so forth was it was unprecedented. It was the best atmosphere of any super regional we've ever had here.
Yeah. And Wes, what Franz is talking about, 12,000 Razorback Balm Stadium. Matt, you watch these games over there. There's so many. There's Matt or Wes, 600,000 people probably live right there in that ADI of Northwest Arkansas. It's people think of Fayetteville like it's some small college town. That's a big market. They're out drawing, as Franz said, AA and AAA teams would do anything to get the kind of crowds the Razorbacks get.
Hey, there's some Major League Baseball teams that would like to get 11.
Yes, correct.
But the thing is, it's just not Northwest Arkansas. It's crazy when we go up to these regionals and super regionals, and I make the trip up there. How many people from Little Rock are there, or people from Central Arkansas, I should say? And I'm not on TV up there in Northwest Arkansas, but I go to a game, and there are people stopping me and talking and telling me how much they enjoy my sportscast. So it's people from around the state. That's what it's become, such a tradition and it is hard to get tickets. I mean, it is tough. We'll do a ticket giveaway for the regionals on the radio station, and we got people calling in when the show starts to sit on hold for the opportunity to win tickets maybe 2 hours later. It is a tough ticket to get, and it's become to the point where they can just keep on expanding, and they're going to fill the stadium, and that's a good problem to have.
Yeah, well, you got people moving back, retiring to these college towns, and and Matt's on here. Matt's son's on the football staff with Dan Lanning at Oregon, and Matt's an Iowa fan. And you think about Wes in the Midwest, baseball is very popular. I mean, look north of you, you got the Cardinals northeast, and right above you, go straight north, Kansas City. But it's good to see, and I think it's great for America when baseball is strong, Wes. And in the state of Arkansas, baseball, I mean, that is Cardinals country all the way. Now, a lot of our listening audience is what they call Braves country, but you've got the AA and AAA. I'm with Franz. I think SEC baseball, I'd like to see SEC All-Stars play, or even if I was an SEC coach, I would try to schedule some games against some AA teams. Wes, is that legal?
Oh, yeah. In fact, Arkansas this fall played a couple of games against the Texas Rangers Farm League team. And there were some of the Rangers' top prospects that came to Fayetteville and played 2 games against the Razorbacks. So, yeah, that's going on in fall ball some. And, because some teams now can scrimmage other teams. They changed that rule, I guess, 2 years ago. And Arkansas this year chose not to scrimmage another team and scrimmage the Texas Rangers farm team instead. So, yeah, no, that was pretty cool. And what you're seeing now, because of the popularity of college baseball and the way some of these teams, Arkansas, Tennessee, Ole Miss, the way they draw and then the way they travel. You can go and play college ball now for 3 years and maybe get a little NIL money, and you develop so that you don't have to spend as much time in the lower levels of rookie ball or minor league ball, and you can jump up and have a quicker path to the big leagues. And you're not riding buses. You're not staying in these one-star hotels. That's a tough life for these kids out of high school. And look, I had a friend of the family who he chose that route, and he regretted it. He was the only one in his hotel room that spoke English. And he said it was tough. It was a tough change from him to go from high school to on the road, traveling by bus, staying with guys that don't speak his language. And he had to learn their language, and they were trying to learn English. And it was tough. And you think about, instead, he could have gone to Arkansas or Vanderbilt or LSU and been one of the big men on campus and get to travel well. You eat great. There are a lot of pluses. And so now you're starting to see more of the top 100 players in this upcoming draft in the past couple of years, more and more saying no to Major League Baseball and coming to college. And that's only improving the college game. Yeah.
Matt, jump in here and comment on that. You see it over at Rhodes, the popularity of baseball.
Oh, it's incredible. It's worldwide. Franz, I had 2 questions for you because I'll be honest with you, up until now, I haven't delved into some of the Florida statistics, but you guys have a player that's like Ohtani. You got a guy that's had 31 home runs. He's also 7-3 as a pitcher. I just looked up. Is that accurate? And he's got a 3.78 ERA against aluminum bats.
And he's a 20-year-old kid who is just as happy-go-lucky as it gets.
Yeah.
Who you ask him questions, and one of the things he says is, "Hey, I'm just a 20-year-old kid." And then you get a kid like, and I wrote about him today, like BT Ryapel. Now, here's a guy that Mr. Clutch, 7 hits in the postseason, 6 of them have left the yard. He's going into the financial services, and he has a college degree. And he's playing for the love of the game. You got to love the game when you got 3 pitchers, and not including the guys in the bullpen, who throw 100 miles an hour. And can you imagine the impact of foul balls when they tear them off your mask or something like that? You got to love it. And he gets up there in the media after the game Saturday night, and I got to tell you what, it was all he could do to hold it together. I asked him about his journey, his particular journey that got him here, and he just said, I wasn't highly recruited. I went to Coastal Carolina, and he sat, and then he had a couple years when he finally got to play. Then he comes here, and signs, autographs, everything. And this is what you see college kids doing. College kids will get there and sign the autographs and things like that. One of the things I always loved about Cal Ripken Jr., he learned this, and I remember him when Cal and Billy were with their dad with the Asheville Orioles. He was the manager, and they would be there in the summer. And, Cal's over there with Doug DeSensei teaching him. And Doug DeSensei taught him, don't ever walk away from somebody who wants an autograph. You sign them. And if they tell you the bus is waiting, say you'll take a cab, but you sign every autograph. And
I love hearing that. I mean, Wes, I know you about got to go, and Franz, Matt, stay with us. But Wes, I love what Franz just said, signing the autograph. I'm seeing that growth in baseball because these guys, they seem to really love, and the fans are really connecting with them. And that's something, Wes, that you see out covering sports on all levels, don't you?
Well, and guys, it's another thing you're starting to see is the players turning down, not only as a freshman, but you're seeing some guys come back for their senior year. Yeah. And they could be fringe guys where they could go and make a little money playing minor league baseball, but they may know, what, this is as good as it's going to get for me. And so they come back for that fifth year, or maybe for some, a sixth year with COVID. And once again, the quality of college baseball has only improved because you got older, experienced players that are sticking around because the atmosphere and what college baseball has to offer is so much better than some of this minor league baseball.
It really is. And Wes, I know you've got a tight schedule before your show, but look forward to having you on next week. And Franz, you'll be back on batting leadoff tomorrow morning. And you had a schedule conflict today. And Matt, great stuff as always. Let people know, Wes, how they can follow you, keep up with you, and what you're talking about on your show today. Maybe a little baseball, I bet.
Oh, yeah. We'll have Bubba Carpenter on today. He's the color commentator for the Razorbacks Radio Network. We're going to kind of wrap up the season and look ahead and see what next year's roster could look like. Go download the Buzz app right now. Go to your app store. It's 1037 The Buzz. You can listen online on your browser, 1037thebuzz.com. And follow me on Twitter. It's Wes_more, 2 S's in Wes, 2 O's and more. Guys, have a great day.
You do too. Thanks so much. And look here, guys, the thing that is so much fun, we had this discussion today. I love what you just said, friends, about the guy. Sign that autograph. Miss the bus. Take a cab. Don't forget who you were there for. It's like in what I do, in addition to this show, if a client calls me, I'm kidding you, at 5:30 in the morning, which they have during duck season because they know been up, I'm taking that call. Don't forget who makes all of it possible. Buddy Martin, your partner there, Franz, GatorBaitMedia.com, and Buddy's been out the last couple of weeks from the show and working on some stuff, and love him and Franz and Ben Troop and all. It's the fans own college football. The fans are the sports. Don't ever forget that. And Matt, you know that. I mean, the importance of giving back, and that's what we're seeing. But God, I love college baseball. This has been a blast today on this show. A lot of comments of people saying, hey, I think we talked about football, guys, maybe 1 minute during the show. That shows you the reach of college baseball. So that part I love. Franz, go ahead.
South Carolina fans chartered buses to come down here to Gainesville. That tells you something right there. And the comment that Wes made and what you've made, and also Matt, here's the deal. You come to a place like the University of Florida. Do you think you take a bus up to Columbia, South Carolina, or Athens? No. You fly on a private chartered jet. That's what the Gators do. And and most places throughout the Southeastern Conference, they fly. Now, I know what minor league baseball players do. Goodness, I remember back you talking to a friend of mine who used to play in the Texas League, and he played in San Antonio, and they had to go to El Paso. And they did it by bus. You know how far it is by bus from San Antonio to El Paso? It's
11 hours.
Miles.
Yeah.
Ooh. And you do a 700-mile bus trip? Holy
God help us.
I mean,
that would be tough.
Your ball game's over on a Wednesday night, and you got a Thursday through Saturday series in El Paso. So you get on the bus and you go 13 hours on the bus to El Paso, and then you got to play baseball there. And it's only going to be about 8,000 degrees, and it's going to be like being in a pizza oven.
Yeah, it is.
And you got it good in college baseball, not to mention the fact that, like BT Riopel, here's a guy that has parlayed his love of a game into a college degree, a master's degree, in fact. And he's going into the financial services industry. He said the other day, he says, I called my boss and he texted me back. He said, just keep winning, boy.
I love it. Hey, guys, unfortunately, we've run out of time, but we most often see the face of Christ, and least among us. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world. Tell yourself that every day. Tell yourself great things happen to you because you put God first in everything you do. But we have the greatest show, the greatest format, and the greatest guests and team members like all of y'all. Free speech, the First Amendment is alive and well. There is no censorship here. Sometimes we disagree, whatever like that, but at the end, we're all trying to be on the same team. And I think what we figured out today is college baseball is rolling. It's ginning. It's awesome. We're going to watch some more games today. SEC baseball, hey, you want to be tough, play the best teams in the country. Do it every week, but we're celebrating college baseball. Franz, you're batting leadoff tomorrow. Looking forward to having you on for a full slot. Matt, anytime you're able to be on here with us. And by the way, you and John Hartwell, that stuff, we talked about the free market will correct NIL. Now that the IRS has issued that ruling, we're going to talk more about that in the week. But until then, have a great day. We'll be back on tomorrow morning. We are out of here.